This book, Divine Simplicity, A Dogmatic Account by Stephen Duby, is a very interesting book. And that's because it is both highly rigorous on the one hand, framed a certain way, and on the other hand, framed a different way, the way that it is actually framed. It is definitely not highly rigorous, at least in what he claims he's doing with the book. It is highly rigorous if he were to frame the book as, hey, this is how a Thomistic, Reformed, dogmatic theologian, which he says he is, and this is what he says he is unfolding Scripture as, this is how that kind of theologian interprets Scripture. Then it would be rigorous in the sense that, okay, well, it's how you interpret it, and then I can disagree with it or agree with it depending on whether or not that interpretation is valid. The problem is the book is actually framed around the idea that Scripture requires divine simplicity. He unfolds this by assuming a Thomistic, Reformed, dogmatic theologian's stance. And so what would make him very rigorous on the one hand is actually what's causing him to be not rigorous on the other hand. Because exegesis, if we assume something, if we unfold our exegesis, what we're reading from Scripture, via a lens, then we're not actually doing exegesis. This is typically what we would call eisegesis. We're reading something into the text. And it's interesting because sometimes he does solid exegesis. Sometimes this exegesis is done in a way that's like, oh no, this is what this verse says, and that's it. But then when he unfolds the verse later, he goes a step further and says, oh, well, yeah, forget that I said that this is what the verse is actually saying. Now I'm saying that this is what the verse is saying. He does this with the Shema, where Yahweh is one. He initially says that this just means that Yahweh is the one true God, but later that is used to say, oh, he's simple. But then sometimes he just goes straight to, hey, this is how I'm interpreting this because it must be interpreted this way for this to be a thing that actually works for what I'm trying to say. You can see this in how he addresses text on immutability. For example, Balaam in Numbers 23 and 1 Samuel 15 are his two major examples of immutability that are really just interpreted via this Thomistic, Reformed, dogmatic approach. And it actually has very little to do with the exegesis of those texts.